There shouldn't be any judgment here around these shifts because your drinking always makes sense. Alcohol is a coping mechanism, and it's one that we are conditioned to use. It's romanticized, glamorized. We project all these qualities onto alcohol, and it becomes this sticking plaster for all the things in life that are a bit testing or challenging or aren't quite working out.
Just a quick note before we start the full episode. If you're listening and thinking, I really need some of this guidance in my own life, my coaching program Rise is where I support women through these kinds of transitions in a more personal way. I'll leave the details in the show notes if you'd like to explore it. Hello, I'm Rachel Fortune, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Answers. This is the podcast where we unpack the questions that come with midlife, from hormones and health to confidence, relationships, and everything in between. Each episode is a short, honest conversation with experts, bringing clarity, practical advice, and simple steps you can take forward, all in around 15 minutes. Today's conversation explores a question many of us might find ourselves asking. Could alcohol be making our menopause symptoms worse? For many of us, alcohol has been part of everyday life, a way to unwind, celebrate, socialize, or just switch off after a busy day. But as our bodies change through perimenopause and menopause, the way we respond to alcohol can change too. Today, I'm joined by Kate B., founder of The Sober School, a coaching platform helping women stop drinking and start living without shame, labels, or deprivation. A former BBC journalist and certified life coach, Kate now supports women across the globe to better understand their relationship with alcohol and make changes that feel empowering and sustainable. Through her program, Getting Unstuck, she has helped more than 4,000 women transform the way they think about drinking. In this episode, we're exploring why drinking habits can shift, how alcohol may be impacting things like sleep, anxiety, and menopause symptoms, and the small steps that we can take to feel more in control. Kate, a huge welcome to Midlife Answers. It is really lovely to have you on the podcast today. Now, as I just talked about in the introduction, this conversation is not going to be about judgment. It's not about blame or shame. Rather, it is going to be about supporting women with their relationship around alcohol and letting them make informed decisions when it comes to their own health, be it their mental, physical, or emotional health. So can we start with that question? Why do so many women in midlife feel that there is a shift with their relationship around alcohol, even when so many of us think that we are just normal drinkers?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I really appreciate being here. And that is exactly the question to ask in that framing. There shouldn't be any judgment here around these shifts because your drinking always makes sense. Alcohol is a coping mechanism, and it's one that we are conditioned to use. It's romanticized, glamorized. We project all these qualities onto alcohol, and it becomes this sticking plaster for all the things in life that are a bit testing or challenging or aren't quite working out. And to answer your question, I think that when we're in midlife, we are in a bit of a crunch anyway. We might have teenage kids, a fairly senior role at work, aging parents, the pressures of caring for people, so many different things going on all at once. And alcohol, which has always sort of been there in the background, perhaps a part of life, but not a huge part, suddenly it can shift places right into the, and just become a lot more prominent as a nightly solution to the things that are happening rather than the occasional treat or something just associated with socializing and fun times. I think it's really a reflection on life and why that can move and that relationship can change for so many women.
I think you're right, Kate. I think it can become a habit, can't it? And I do want us to come on to, like you just talked about, that nightly drink. But before that, can we just talk about what is going on inside our bodies during perimenopause and menopause that can make alcohol affect us differently? What is happening, whether it's hormonally or physically?
Mm. So during menopause, we're going through, and perimenopause, we're going through so many changes anyway. And those shifts can make us feel uncomfortable, which increases the appeal of alcohol and the desire to just shut it all down at the end of the day. But unfortunately, we pay this massive price for using alcohol because it then exacerbates so many of the problems, from destroying your sleep, which might be fragmented anyway. For the average woman who's not drinking during perimenopause, she's going to see a shift with that. Menopause affects your temperature regulation. Well, alcohol can be a trigger for that. So you wake up even hotter and sweatier in the middle of the night. A lot of women experience an increase in anxiety and low mood during menopause. And guess what? Alcohol makes that worse as well. We've probably all experienced anxiety when you wake up the morning after and everything just seems worse. So we're dealing with this bad set of changing circumstances anyway, and alcohol kind of appears on the scene like a solution, but it actually comes with all these consequences.
And at the time, Kate, it can seem like the right thing to be doing. You know, you touched on having that glass of wine in the evening, or an extra couple of glasses at the weekend for that exact reason, to relax, unwind. And I've also heard women describe it as just numbing themselves to the busyness and stress that they're experiencing day to day. So you mentioned what an impact that can have on sleep, anxiety, hot flushes. But what are the key changes that we should be looking out for when drinking is no longer enjoyable? It's no longer serving us, but it's actually being something that we are needing or thinking that we are needing day to day.
Do you mean in terms of how to know when this has perhaps shifted into something that's different from where we were?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is the $1,000,000 question, because when we watch movies and TV shows, problems with alcohol seem to fit into all these neat boxes, or all these cliches, all these stereotypes of what we think problem drinking looks like. But the women I work with at the sober school never look like that. They are still getting up the next day, going to work, doing a fantastic job. All the deadlines are met. The appointments are, hit on time. There's just nothing out of place. And I think this can make it really tricky to know, well, hang on a second. What is going on here? Is this a problem? So I just bring it back to this. I think you can keep it really simple and say, have I been concerned about my drinking for a while? Have I tried to drink less, but maybe I found that difficult? Am I waking up in the morning regretting what I had to drink the night before? And it's that third one that's really the key thing. Because if you are repeatedly waking up, feeling rubbish, wondering, why did I drink a whole bottle when I said I was just going to have one glass? Those are the signs to be looking out for. You don't need to have woken up in a prison cell with no memory of how you got there, or any other ridiculous cliche.
It's the subtle changes, isn't it? And I know that you've been very honest on your own platform, the Sober School, about your challenges around alcohol. And like you say, this is not about being judgmental or being unkind to yourself. It's about having compassion yourself and actually having the strength to realize there might be an issue. And it's also, whilst we're talking about it, I think we can put a lot of blame on willpower and thinking that we don't have the willpower to change. And I think that's a really important conversation to have now, is that it's so often not down to willpower. It's to do with the support system, either one not being there or it being broken. And what I mean by that is, if someone is really wanting to cut down on their alcohol, but they have alcohol in their house, or their social life evolves around alcohol, then surely a really good proactive step for them to take would be to take the alcohol out of their house, and also think about doing activities that doesn't involve drinking. Is that something that you talk to your clients about moving forward?
Yeah. And I just think you raised such a good point there about the willpower issue, because that can be so shameful for women when they're struggling with alcohol. This idea that, oh, come on, just get a grip. If you just really wanted to cut back, you could do. But I just say we would never make those comments about smoking. If you Google how to cut down on smoking, there's nothing there. It's just all advice about how to stop smoking. So we accept that with other addictive drugs, it is normal to become addicted to them, especially when they're so romanticized and glamorized. And we need to bring that same compassionate, realistic understanding here and say, hey, look, alcohol is providing some kind of pleasure, benefit, or service for you. So if you're going to take it away because you've decided the consequences of this coping mechanism are too great, then we need to change some stuff. You're going to need other coping mechanisms, or maybe some other bigger holistic changes. And I know you talk about this, Rachel, but just kind of standing back and looking at your life and thinking, hang on, have I got way too much on my plate? How have I ended up in this position where I am responsible for all of this and I'm unsupported? So it's the right mix of things to actually make this shift. So it's not just, oh my goodness, I've taken away the one thing that was actually giving me a few minutes reprieve.
Kate, is it about giving up alcohol altogether at this stage, or is it more of a reframing of the quantity of alcohol that we could be having?
I think it depends, and there isn't a clear-cut answer for everyone. For some women, there will be this decision that actually I can just drink occasionally and that's fine. Maybe they stop drinking at home and that's enough. That feels good. The women I work with are women who've tried that already and it just creeps back in. And it creeps back into a point where they're unhappy. And so what I say is, okay, don't worry, we don't have to sign up to forever here. But what if you took a really good long break from alcohol and we worked on building up some of the skills and the other coping mechanisms? And we did that without the fog of the hangovers and the sort of wine like right in front of you. What if we just did that for a while, took sobriety for a proper test drive, and then you can decide? So I don't think it's a kind of easy, it's just not easy to say exactly what the path is for everyone. Yeah.
No, I really I appreciate your honesty. It's not binary. It's not black and white, and every person is different. But it's those small steps, isn't it? And I think that's what I'd like to get on to now, Kate. With all the podcasts that I have, I like to end with some really practical, tangible tools that the listeners can take forward with them. So for those women listening who are thinking, I just think I might need to ease up a little bit on my drinking. I want to cut down, but I don't know how to start. What are some of the first steps that they can start doing that will be really supportive for that change?
So I'm going to suggest two things. First of all, just start looking at what you're eating and drinking during the day, because it's no coincidence we get the strongest cravings to drink at the end of the day when we are often hungry and thirsty and tired, of course. So if you can start having a snack around sort of 4 p.m., it can be something healthy and then knock back a few glasses of water, you will be amazed how much that changes. I work with a lot of women who restrict their calorie intake during the day to the point where they are hangry at the end of the day as much as anything. And that can be very confusing in your body because it feels like an alcohol craving. So that's one thing. Eat a bit more food, drink some more water. But the other thing is this, kind of stand back and say, okay, if I'm starting to drink every evening, why am I drinking? What is alcohol doing for me? And a lot of people say, oh, well, it just helps me relax. But if we could go a little bit deeper than that, what else is it doing? Maybe it's masking over a feeling of disconnection, or you've worked hard all day and no one's acknowledged that, or you feel overwhelmed and you don't know how to catch your breath, and wine is stepping into that there. If you can just identify very specifically in a more vulnerable way what it is that alcohol's doing, and that is the first step to finding another way to meet that need. Because behind every craving for alcohol is an unmet need, and we need to focus on addressing those needs.
Those two pieces of advice they seem so obvious when you say it, but in reality, when the days are busy and you don't have time to give yourself space to think about how you're feeling in that moment, it can be easily brushed under the carpet. So taking that time to ask yourself, what stage am I at? What mood am I in? Why am I reaching for that glass of wine? And also the food and the hydration, it does make complete sense. When you were saying it, I was like, well, yes, naturally by 6 o'clock, everyone is kind of ready. They're clawing their way to the end, aren't they? The children could be getting ready for bed, or you're coming home from work and you're gagging for some kind of downtime. But just refueling your body through hydration and food will give it a different kind of energy. So thank you so much for sharing those tips. And obviously you have your platform, The Social School. I will put all the details to that in the show notes, because undoubtedly people are going to want to learn a lot more about your journey and also how you can help people going forward. So I will put all the details there. But for today, Kate, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being compassionate and understanding and giving some really active steps going forward for those that need it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Before we finish, what really stayed with me from this conversation is that this isn't about telling women to give up alcohol. It's about understanding why our relationship with it might have changed. I also loved Kate's point that this isn't about willpower. If alcohol has become part of how we relax, socialise, or mark the end of the day, that's not a personal failing. It's a pattern. And patterns can change. Whether it's not keeping alcohol in the house, finding other ways to unwind, or suggesting plans that don't always revolve around drinking. Sometimes the smallest changes can help us feel more in control again. Ultimately, it's about having the freedom to choose, rather than feeling like you're running on autopilot. And perhaps that's what a healthy relationship with alcohol looks like in midlife. Not necessarily drinking less or stopping altogether, but feeling empowered to make the choice that's right for you. If this conversation resonated with you, there are plenty more episodes of Midlife Answers waiting for you. Each one explores one real question with expert insight, practical advice, and realistic next steps you can take into everyday life. And if there's a question you'd love answered on the podcast, I genuinely love to hear from you. Send it in and I'll find the expert who can help answer it clearly, practically, and compassionately. If you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you know someone who will find this episode helpful, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with them. Midlife can feel confusing at times and even a little isolating, but you don't have to figure it out on your own. This space is here for you. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Midlife Answers.